little too much. Every moment that had seemed innocent but now felt like a lie. Tunde kept glancing at him, worried. Bro, what's the plan? You want to go up there? Daniel shook his head. No. Then what? He exhaled sharply. I need evidence. He pulled out his phone and started recording. The lobby, the car, the timestamp on his phone. He would document everything. If Adesuwa thought she could play him, she had no idea who she was messing with. At exactly 9:42 p.m., the elevator dinged. Daniel and Tunde watched as Richard stepped out first, adjusting his jacket like a man who had just finished a workout. He pulled out his phone, probably texting Adesuwa. A minute later, Adesuwa appeared. Her makeup was still perfect, but there was a glow to her skin, a lightness in her step. She looked happy. It made Daniel sick. She checked her phone, smiled at the screen, then walked out of the lobby like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just shattered her husband's world. Daniel pressed stop on the recording. It was done. Driving back home, Daniel said nothing. Tunde kept stealing glances at him, waiting for some kind of explosion, but it never came. Daniel was too deep in thought. Now that he had seen the truth, what was he going to do with it? Revenge? Exposure? Silence? One thing was clear. His marriage would never be the same again. I sat alone in my study, the dim glow of my laptop screen casting shadows on the walls. My hands trembled as I held my phone, the screen still displaying the video I had recorded just hours ago. Adesuwa, my wife, my partner, the woman I had built my life with, wrapped in the arms of Richard, my closest business associate. I had watched her smile at him, touch him the way she used to touch me. And worst of all, I had seen the undeniable passion in her eyes. My mind was spinning. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I replayed the video over and over, hoping, foolishly, that I had imagined it all. That somehow, someway, there was a logical explanation. But the evidence was right there, staring back at me. I should have stormed into that hotel room. I should have dragged Richard out by the collar, screamed at Adesuwa, demanded answers. But instead, I had just stood there, frozen, my body refusing to move. And now, sitting here in the silence of my home, I felt paralyzed all over again. I ran my hands over my face, feeling the weight of betrayal settle into my bones. How long had this been going on? How many lies had she told? And how blind had I been? A part of me wanted to call her immediately, demand the truth, force her to confess. But what would that change? She had already chosen. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. She had walked into that hotel willingly, knowing exactly what she was doing. My pride refused to let me beg for answers I already knew. I scrolled through my phone, my finger hovering over Tunde's name. He had been right all along. He had warned me, tried to make me see the signs. And yet, I had dismissed his concerns, convinced that my marriage was solid. How foolish I must have looked. I let out a bitter laugh. Instead of calling him, I opened my gallery again, my eyes glued to the video. The way Richard touched her, the way she leaned into him, it played on repeat in my head like a haunting melody. My stomach twisted in knots. The rage in me burned hot, but beneath that, there was something even more unbearable. Pain. Real, raw pain. I thought about the life we had built together. The vacations, the parties, the whispered conversations late at night. The mornings when she would wake up before me, gently kissing my forehead before heading to the kitchen to make breakfast. Had all of that been a lie? Had she ever truly loved me? Or had she just been playing a role? My thoughts turned darker. What if this wasn't the first time? What if Richard wasn't the only one? My chest tightened at the thought. I needed answers. I needed to know the full extent of her betrayal. Then, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if I was the fool sitting at home, heartbroken, while she was still out there, tangled up in another man's arms? The idea made my blood boil. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. My hands clenched into fists. I needed to do something. Anything. But what? Confronting her now would be too easy. She would lie, cry, manipulate. She was good at that. Too good. I had seen how she charmed people at events. How she always knew exactly what to say to make people trust her. No, I couldn't give her that chance. I needed proof. More proof. Proof that would destroy her excuses, her denials. If she had been capable of cheating with Richard, who was to say she hadn't done it before? My chest tightened again as I grabbed my phone and typed out a message to someone I never thought I would reach out to. Detective Hassan Bakir. Daniel, I need your help. Urgent. Detective Hassan, what's going on? Daniel, my wife. She's cheating. And I need to know how deep this goes. Detective Hassan, I'll handle it. Give me details. I hesitated for a moment before sending him the video. As painful as it was to watch, it was now evidence. Evidence that I needed to turn the tables on Adesuwa. As I waited for his response, I stared at my reflection in the window. The man looking back at me wasn't the same Daniel Martins people knew. This wasn't the confident, successful businessman. This was a broken man, betrayed and humiliated. And I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let her win. I sat back down, my mind shifting from pain to strategy. If Adesuwa had played me, then it was only fair that I played her right back. The game had just begun. I wish I could say it ended there, that Daniel had seen enough and decided to walk away. But that wasn't the case. The betrayal ran much deeper than anyone expected. And the moment he realized that Adesuwa's affair with Richard wasn't her only secret, that was the moment everything changed. After that night at Eco Atlantic Hotel, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the video on his phone, watching Adesuwa laugh, watching her melt into Richard's arms like she belonged there. It wasn't just the physical betrayal that hurt, it was the ease, the familiarity, the way she looked at him, like she had never looked at Daniel before. The next morning, he made a call. Not to Adesuwa, not to Tunde, but to a man he had never needed before. Detective Hassan. Hassan was the kind of guy you called when you needed the truth, when you needed it fast and when you needed it without noise. Daniel knew if he went looking for answers himself, he might end up doing something reckless. But Hassan was precise, efficient, dangerous even. And that was exactly what Daniel needed. They met at a quiet restaurant in Victoria Island. Daniel told him everything, the anonymous message, the hotel stakeout, the video. And then he said the words that made Hassan pause. I need to know if Richard is the only one. Hassan leaned back, arms crossed. Are you sure you want the answer to that? Daniel didn't hesitate. Find out. 3 days later, Hassan delivered. And it was worse than Daniel could have imagined. Richard wasn't the only one. There was someone else. Someone younger. Someone who had nothing to do with business deals or power plays. David Johnson. A musician. A struggling one at that. The kind of guy who lived for late-night studio sessions and barely had money for rent. The kind of guy who should have had no business with Adesuwa, a woman accustomed to luxury. But somehow, he did. Hassan sent over pictures. Adesuwa and David at a private beach house in Lekki, tucked away from prying eyes. Adesuwa in his car, handing him an envelope that Hassan was almost certain was cash. A text message exchange Hassan had managed to retrieve. David, I miss you. I hate when we have to be careful. Adesuwa, patience, my love. You know I'm handling things. Patience. Handling things. Daniel's blood boiled. He had thought the Richard affair was bad enough. But this, his wife wasn't just cheating. She was playing sponsor to some upcoming musician, funding his lifestyle while Daniel worked his ass off to provide for her. He had built a life for her, given her everything. And she was out here living a double life. He slammed his fist against his desk, knocking over a framed picture of them on their wedding day. He didn't bother picking it up. Tunde came over that evening, and Daniel told him everything. David Johnson. Tunde repeated, shaking his head. Your wife is funding a struggling artist while sleeping with your business partner. Daniel didn't respond. Tunde exhaled sharply. This isn't about love, my guy. It's about power. Your wife, she's not just having fun. She's controlling these men. And that's the most dangerous kind of betrayal. Dangerous. The word sat heavily on Daniel's chest. Because it was true. This wasn't just a woman who had lost interest in her husband and fallen for another man. This was calculated. Planned. A web of deception carefully woven. And he had been blind to it all. But not anymore. For the first time in days, Daniel felt something different from pain. Something stronger than betrayal. A need for revenge. He wasn't going to act on impulse. No, that was what Adesuwa would expect. He was going to be smart, patient, precise, and when the time came, she wouldn't see it coming. Detective Hassan kept digging, and the more he found, the angrier Daniel became. Adesuwa had been funding David for months, paying for his studio sessions, buying him clothes, even covering his rent. And David, he wasn't just sitting around singing love songs. He had been bragging about his mysterious madam to his friends. Acting like a Lagos big boy when, In reality, he was living off another man's wife. The final straw came when Hassan handed Daniel an audio clip. A conversation between David and one of his friends. David, she's crazy about me, bro. I just tell her I miss her, and money lands in my account. Friend, and her husband. David, the guy has no clue. He's busy running business deals while I'm running his wife. Laughter. Loud. Carefree. Daniel clenched his fists so hard his nails dug into his palms. His vision blurred with rage. This wasn't just betrayal. This was humiliation. And there was only one way to respond. He looked up at Hassan, voice steady. I want the whole world to know. Hassan raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? I'm sure. No more silence. No more pretending. If Adesuwa wanted to play this game, he would make sure she lost. Badly. And the first move. Exposing her. Publicly. Lagos was about to witness the scandal of the year. I remember the way Daniel looked at me that evening. His eyes dark and empty, like someone who had just seen his whole world collapse but wasn't sure what to do next. He sat in silence, barely blinking, just staring at his phone screen. The room was dim, the only light coming from the lamp beside him, casting long shadows on the wall. I knew what he had seen. The evidence of his wife's betrayal played over and over in his mind like a bad dream he couldn't wake up from. I was his sister, Sophia, and I had never seen him like this before. My brother was always the strong one, the man with the answers, the one who took control of every situation. But now, he was lost. Daniel, I said softly, sitting beside him. You need to breathe. Talk to me. He exhaled sharply, his grip tightening around his phone. It's not just Richard, he muttered. It's not just one mistake. He swiped his screen and showed me pictures, messages, call logs. Names I didn't recognize. One, however, stood out, David Johnson. I frowned. Who is he? Daniel let out a dry chuckle, but there was no humor in it. A struggling musician. She was supporting him, paying for his studio sessions, his rent, even bought him a car. I felt sick. This wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was something else. Daniel leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I gave her everything, Sophia. A house. A life people envy. And this is what she does. I wanted to comfort him. But what could I say? That everything would be okay? It wouldn't. His marriage was in pieces, his trust completely shattered. But the scariest part was the look in his eyes, the cold, calculating silence. That's when I knew he was planning something. Daniel, listen to me, I said firmly. Don't act on impulse. This is your life, your marriage. You need to think. He turned to me, his jaw tightening. Oh, I'm thinking, Sophia. I'm thinking very carefully. For the next few days, Daniel barely spoke to anyone. He went about his business like nothing was wrong, but I knew better. He wasn't sleeping. He barely ate. And when he did speak, it was only to ask more about Detective Hassan, the private investigator he had hired. One night, I saw him sitting in his study, scrolling through files the detective had sent him. He had printed everything out, laid it across his desk in neat stacks, evidence, messages, pictures, financial records. It looked like he was building a case, not just against Adesuwa, but against Richard and David too. That's when I knew Daniel wasn't just heartbroken. He was plotting something. Are you sure about this? I asked him the next morning as he stood by the window, staring outside like a man deep in thought. He turned to me, his expression unreadable. She made a fool of me, Sophia. And she thinks she's going to get away with it. I swallowed hard. And what do you want to do? For a moment, he didn't answer. Then, his lips curled into a bitter smirk. I want to make sure she regrets it. Every single bit of it. That night, I overheard a phone call. Daniel was speaking to someone in a low, controlled voice. Not yet, he said. We wait. When the time is right, I'll make the first move. A long pause. Keep watching her. My stomach twisted. What was he planning? The next day, he finally told me. He wasn't going to confront Adesuwa outright. No, that was too easy. Instead, he was going to expose her. Daniel had gathered enough evidence to destroy her reputation completely. And not just hers, Richard and David's too. He had bank statements, call logs, proof of hotel meetings, money transfers, gifts. Everything. I tried to talk him out of it. Daniel, this will ruin everything. You'll be dragging yourself down too. He laughed, an empty, lifeless sound. Sophia. She ruined everything the moment she decided to betray me. He was beyond reasoning. And so, I did the only thing I could. I watched, helplessly, as my brother prepared to destroy his wife. I remember the exact moment Daniel decided to flip the script. The anger in his eyes had settled into something else, a cold, calculated determination. It wasn't enough for him to be hurting. He wanted Adesuwa to feel it too, publicly, without mercy. And once Daniel made up his mind, there was no going back. At first, I thought he was going to confront her, maybe throw her out of the house, demand a divorce, something direct and expected. But no, that wasn't enough. He wanted the world to see her for who she truly was. He wanted her to drown in the same humiliation he had felt. And Lagos would eat it up. The plan was ruthless. He took the video footage from the hotel, the one where Adesuwa was all over Richard like he was the only man in her world, and handed it over to me. Tunde, I need this to go viral. But not just yet. We do this right, it'll destroy everything she's built. I knew exactly who to call, Funmi Adebayo. If you lived in Lagos and had secrets to hide, Funmi was the last person you wanted anywhere near your business. She ran one of the most followed gossip blogs in Nigeria. Once she put a story out, it spread faster than wildfire. And Daniel wasn't just giving her a scandal, he was handing her gold. But we didn't stop at just sending her the raw footage. That would have been too simple. Instead, Daniel had it edited, just enough to make things look worse than they already were. A slow zoom on Adesuwa's lips as she whispered into Richard's ear. A cut to her laughing flirtatiously. Then another clip, this one of Richard brushing his fingers along her wrist, his wedding band catching the dim hotel light. The way it was pieced together, there was no mistaking what was happening. Make sure they run it as an exclusive, Daniel told Funmi over the phone. And drop hints, don't say her name immediately. Let people guess first. Build the suspense. You know how to do this. Funmi laughed, the kind of laugh that sent chills down my spine. Daniel, this is what I do best. Give me 24 hours. And just like that, the wheels were in motion. But Daniel wasn't done. He wanted to make sure Adesuwa felt the walls closing in before the bomb dropped. That's where I came in. My job was to plant doubt. A casual conversation with one of her closest friends. A slip of the tongue at a social event. I heard something crazy today. Someone in our circle has been stepping out on her husband, and it's about to blow up. Lagos socialites thrived on gossip, and once it started spreading, there was no way to stop it. Meanwhile, Daniel moved to the next phase of his plan. He needed Richard to panic. He needed him to start covering his tracks, making desperate phone calls, trying to control the narrative before it spun out of his hands. So, he sent him a message. One simple text. You have 48 hours to tell your wife the truth. If you don't, she'll find out another way. Richard didn't reply. But within an hour, Daniel's sources told him that Richard had called his lawyer. That was all the confirmation he needed. Richard was scared. And scared men made mistakes. By the next evening, whispers had turned into speculation. Speculation had turned into wild theories. People were trying to guess who the cheating wife could be, which high-profile businessman was about to be disgraced. Then Funmi made her move. She posted a cryptic tweet. A certain Lagos power couple is about to go up in flames. Betrayal. Lies. And the receipts. Oh, they are coming. The comments went crazy. People started throwing out names, dissecting recent events, trying to piece things together. And then, Funmi dropped the hammer. The headline hit her blog at exactly 7 p.m. Exclusive, a Lagos big boy's wife caught in a hotel with his own business partner. It came with screenshots from the video, blurred but still recognizable. A side shot of Adesuwa entering the hotel. Richard holding the door open for her. The timestamp. By the time people finished reading, Adesuwa's name was trending. The internet went mad. No way. Not Adesuwa Martins. She and Daniel always looked so perfect. Omo, Lagos women no get shame. How do you cheat with your husband's business partner? That Richard guy must have a death wish. Does he even know who Daniel Martins is? Adesuwa had no idea yet. She had spent the evening at a spa, her phone on silent. The first call came from her best friend, screaming into the receiver. Check Funmi's blog. Check Twitter. You need to see what they are saying about you. It wasn't just online. Her social circles, her clients, even people who barely knew her were talking. The scandal was spreading through WhatsApp groups like wildfire. By the time she got home and opened her phone, She was staring at hundreds of missed calls. Then she saw it. The blog post. The video. The comments. Her world started to collapse in slow motion. She ran upstairs, breathless, the color drained from her face. "Daniel," she choked out, her voice shaking. "What is this?" Daniel stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, watching her unravel. "I don't know, Adesuwa. Looks like Funmi found something very interesting, don't you think?" She shook her head violently, fingers gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. "You did this. You leaked this." Daniel didn't even flinch. "You ruined our marriage. I just made sure everyone saw it for what it was." Adesuwa's breathing was uneven. "Do you have any idea what you've done? My business, my reputation." "Your reputation." Daniel's voice was ice. "You mean the one you built while sneaking around with my business partner? That reputation?" Tears welled in her eyes, but Daniel didn't care. He wasn't interested in her excuses. He had spent too many nights playing the fool, pretending not to notice, convincing himself he was overthinking things. "Not anymore. You wanted secrets, Adesuwa," he said, stepping closer. "Well, now the whole world knows yours." She staggered back, her mind racing, trying to think of a way out. But there wasn't one. It was too late. And this was just the beginning. Lagos social media caught fire. It was like a bomb had been dropped, and the entire city was watching the fallout in real time. Nobody expected it. Nobody saw it coming. But when the first video hit the internet, there was no going back. It started with an Instagram page called Gistroom9ja, one of those gossip blogs that lived for scandals like this. They posted a blurry but unmistakable clip of Adesuwa and Richard in that hotel room. The caption was brutal. "Lagos big girl caught cheating with husband's best friend. Who's the fool now?" Within minutes, the comments section was flooded. "Omo, this one choke. So na Adesuwa day do big madam for Lagos. E pain me for Daniel. Richard of all people. Fear women. She for cuckoo wear ashwo for forehead." It wasn't just gossip pages that picked it up. The video spread like wildfire. WhatsApp groups, Twitter threads, even Facebook. People couldn't get enough. Everyone had an opinion. Some people were in shock, others were celebrating Daniel like a hero for exposing her. But the worst part, this was only the beginning. At first, Adesuwa had no idea what was happening. She was at home, sipping her morning smoothie, scrolling through Instagram like any other day. But then, her phone started blowing up. Calls, messages, notifications, non-stop. When she finally clicked on one of the links sent by a friend, her hands started shaking. There she was, on every blog, every page, caught red-handed. And not just her, Richard's name was right there too. His company, Adeyemi Group, was trending for all the wrong reasons. Clients were already pulling out. Investors were reconsidering deals. His phone, dead silent. No one wanted to be associated with the scandal. Adesuwa felt her chest tighten. Daniel did this. She dialed his number, but of course, he didn't pick up. She tried Tunde next. Voicemail. It didn't matter. The damage was done. Lagos had judged her, and there was no way to erase what had been seen. Meanwhile, Daniel was sitting in his office, watching it all unfold with a blank expression. Tunde sat across from him, refreshing Twitter every few seconds. "Guy, this thing don't go far oh," Tunde muttered, shaking his head. "People day say she suppose carry best in adultery award." Daniel didn't smile. He wasn't celebrating. He had thought this would bring him satisfaction. He had imagined that seeing Adesuwa suffer would heal the wound she had left in his heart. But instead, all he felt was emptiness. His phone buzzed. A message from Sophia. "Sophia, this is too much, Daniel. You've humiliated her enough. Stop this madness." He ignored it. He had been silent for too long. Adesuwa had played him for a fool. Now the whole world would see her for who she truly was. But then, something unexpected happened. Amaka Okafor, a name many didn't recognize, decided to add more fuel to the fire. She was David's ex, the struggling musician Adesuwa had been secretly supporting. Unlike Adesuwa, Amaka had nothing to lose. And she was ready to talk. She dropped a series of voice notes on Twitter, tagging all the major gossip pages. The revelations were worse than anyone expected. Adesuwa day form independent woman, but she day fund David lifestyle. That boy no even get money to buy data before she show. She pay for him rent, buy him iPhone 14 Pro maximum. I know because I was there. She even tell him say makey no worry. say she fit take care of him. Lagos went crazy. She was sponsoring a side guy too. The insults doubled. Women who had initially defended her started calling her reckless. Men, who already had little faith in loyalty, now had proof that women only loved money. Richard's silence made things worse. He didn't release a statement. He didn't deny anything. His office simply put out a cold, short announcement. Mr. Richard Adeyemi is stepping down as CEO of Adeyemi Group pending further notice. To Lagosians, this was an admission of guilt. Adesuwa locked herself in the bedroom for hours. She ignored her phone. She ignored the knocks on her door. She even ignored the news when she saw a photo of Richard entering his lawyer's office. That's when it hit her. She had lost everything. She wasn't just being dragged online. Her business was suffering. Sponsors were quietly pulling out. Brand deals were disappearing. No one wanted to be linked to someone whose reputation was in ruins. She thought about calling David, but what would she even say? He was probably running for his life now that his name was out there. Coward, she muttered under her breath. And then, finally, she cried. Real, body-shaking, gut-wrenching tears. She wasn't crying because she got caught. She was crying because, deep down, she knew she had been playing a dangerous game for too long. But there was one thing she knew for sure. This wasn't over. Daniel had started this war, but she was going to finish it. The city moved fast, but scandals moved even faster. In less than 48 hours, the whole of Lagos had moved on to the next big thing. A new political drama. A celebrity cheating scandal. Something fresh to gossip about. But for Adesuwa, Richard, and Daniel, the damage was permanent. Richard was out of his company. His credibility was gone. Adesuwa was now seen as a cautionary tale. And Daniel, well, he thought he had won. Until Detective Hassan called him with information that would change everything. The scandal had already exploded all over Lagos like wildfire, and Adesuwa's name was in every gossip blog, every conversation at brunch spots, salons, and even boardrooms. But just when we thought the dust was settling, Detective Hassan dropped a bombshell that made everything 10 times worse. It all started with a casual call. Daniel had hired the detective to dig up dirt on Adesuwa, but nobody expected what came next. I remember sitting in Daniel's study when Hassan called. His voice was calm but firm. Daniel, he said, there's something you need to see. Meet me in my office. Now. Daniel barely said a word, but I could tell something in him shifted. He was expecting more proof of Adesuwa's infidelity, maybe another affair, another humiliation to throw at her. But when we got to Hassan's office, the detective's face was serious, almost cautious, like he wasn't sure how to say what he had just uncovered. I traced Adesuwa's transactions, Hassan began, placing a thick folder on the desk. I followed the money. And what I found? It's worse than you think. Daniel grabbed the file and started flipping through the pages. At first, he didn't seem to get it. Bank statements, transaction histories, and WhatsApp chat logs were printed in black and white. But as his eyes moved over the details, his grip on the pages tightened. His breathing became shallow. Adesuwa wasn't just cheating. She was blackmailing Richard. For months. I remember the way Daniel's face twisted in disbelief. This can't be right, he muttered, his fingers tracing over the bank transfers. Huge sums of money, millions of naira, had been moving from Richard's accounts to hers. Regularly. Consistently. Hassan leaned forward. Your wife didn't just have an affair with Richard. She owned him. Daniel's jaw clenched, but Hassan wasn't done. She found out something about Richard, something big. I don't have the full picture yet, but whatever it was serious enough that Richard paid to keep her quiet. The chat logs were the worst part. In messages retrieved from Adesuwa's old phone backups, she was cold, calculated. Adesuwa, you know what will happen if this gets out. Richard, please. I'm handling it. Just give me time. Adesuwa, time? Like I gave you last time. You have until Friday. Friday after Friday, money flowed into her accounts. She had him wrapped around her finger. She played him, controlled him. And the moment he stopped paying, she ran to David, the struggling musician, showering him with gifts while Richard bled money to keep his secret buried. Daniel stared at the pages like they would catch fire in his hands. He looked up at Hassan, his voice barely above a whisper. What was she holding over him? Hassan exhaled. I don't know yet. But Richard was desperate. Whatever it wasn't just about his reputation. It was something bigger. I could feel the rage boiling inside Daniel. This wasn't just betrayal. Adesuwa, humiliating her, bringing her down. But now he realized she wasn't just the cheating wife. She was the mastermind, the puppeteer pulling all the strings. Daniel slammed the file shut. We need to find out what Richard was hiding. Hassan nodded. I'm already working on it. But Daniel, you need to be careful. This isn't just about an affair anymore. This is about power. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. Not a joyful laugh, not even a relieved one. It was bitter, sharp, almost empty. All this time, he said, shaking his head. I thought she was just selfish. But she's dangerous. Hassan and I exchanged glances. Daniel wasn't wrong. Adesuwa wasn't just playing the game. She was winning. Even with the scandal, even with the humiliation, she had been steps ahead of us the whole time. But that was about to change. Daniel left Hassan's office that night with a new mission. Not just to expose Adesuwa, but to find out exactly what Richard had been hiding. Because if there was one thing he now understood, it was this. Adesuwa wasn't just a woman who made mistakes. She was a woman who made moves. And she wasn't done yet. Pa! Adesuwa sat there, looking completely unbothered while the world around her burned. The scandal, the humiliation, the betrayal, none of it seemed to break her. Instead, she looked at Daniel with an expression I couldn't quite place. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. If anything, it was amusement. Like she had been waiting for this moment all along. After days of silence, she finally agreed to speak. Not just to Daniel, but to the world. She had stayed quiet while everyone painted her as the villain, the cheating wife, the heartless woman who destroyed her husband's trust. But now, she was ready to tell her side of the story. I was in the room when she finally broke her silence. The air was thick with tension. Daniel stood there, arms crossed, his jaw tight with fury. His sister, Sophia, sat on the edge of the couch, eyes darting between them. Tunde, the ever-loyal friend, leaned against the wall, watching closely, waiting for any sign of weakness. And then there was me, just an observer, caught in the middle of a storm I never expected to witness. Adesuwa took a deep breath and spoke, her voice steady and firm. You think you've won, don't you? That you've exposed me, ruined me. But tell me, Daniel, when will you tell the world the whole truth? Daniel scoffed. What truth? That you've been lying to me for years. That you turned our marriage into a joke. She tilted her head, her lips curling into a small smile. And you were faithful. You, Daniel Martins. You want to act like the victim now, but we both know the truth. I stayed with you, not because I was in love, but because I needed to survive. A heavy silence fell over the room. Sophia shifted uncomfortably. Tunde frowned. Even Daniel, for the first time since this whole mess started, looked unsure. Adesuwa continued, her eyes locked on Daniel. You want to talk about betrayal? Let's talk about the nights you didn't come home. Let's talk about the business trips that had nothing to do with business. Or the women. Oh, Daniel, should I start naming names? Or should I remind you about the day I found out about you and my so-called friend? Daniel's face darkened. You're lying. Trying to shift the blame. Am I? She laughed, shaking her head. I knew about all of it. Every single affair. The difference between us, Daniel, is that I didn't go crying to the world. I handled it. I stayed. I built a life for myself despite everything. And now, because I finally decided to stop pretending, you want to destroy me. Tunde cleared his throat. Adesuwa, even if Daniel cheated, it doesn't justify what you did. Two wrongs don't make a right. Adesuwa turned to him, her gaze sharp. And what was I supposed to do, Tunde? Leave and start over with nothing? Be the good woman who walks away in silence while my husband parades around with younger girls? She shook her head. I played the game, just like he did. Only difference is, when a woman plays, the world burns her alive. But a man, he gets away with it. Sophia finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. Why didn't you leave if you were so unhappy? Adesuwa sighed, her expression shifting. For the first time, I saw something else in her eyes, regret. Because I was afraid. Because I knew leaving meant starting from scratch. And because deep down, I thought maybe, just maybe, Daniel would change. But he didn't. And neither did I. Daniel ran a hand over his face, clearly frustrated. So what now? You expect me to forgive you? To pretend like you didn't make a fool of me? Adesuwa's smile returned, but this time, it was cold. Forgiveness. Oh, Daniel, I don't need your forgiveness. You already took your revenge. You made sure everyone saw me as a monster. You dragged my name through the mud. But you forgot one thing. I have my own truth, and I'm not afraid to share it. And with that, she pulled out her phone, tapped the screen a few times, and turned it around for us to see. A recording. A video of Daniel, laughing, his arm wrapped around a woman who was very much not his wife. And another video. And another. Tunde cursed under his breath. Sophia gasped. My own stomach twisted. Daniel's face drained of color. Where did you get those? I'm your wife, Daniel. You really think I didn't know? She chuckled, shaking her head. I kept them, just in case. And now, if I go down, you're coming down with me. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Then, Adesuwa stood up, smoothing out her dress. You thought you had all the power, but you forgot. I know exactly who you are. And now, the whole world will too. She walked past him, her heels clicking against the floor, leaving behind a room full of people who had just realized the game wasn't over. It had only just begun. I don't think anyone saw it coming. Not even Daniel. After everything that had happened, the cheating, the scandal, the public humiliation, it looked like Adesuwa was finished. People had dragged her name through the mud, called her a gold digger, a shameless wife, a disgrace to womanhood. The gossip blogs had made her their headline for weeks. Daniel had exposed her. Richard had been disgraced. Even David, the struggling musician she had secretly funded, had turned against her. But just when Daniel thought he had won, Adesuwa played her final card. And this time, the tables turned in a way that no one expected. It started with a single post. A burner account on X, formerly Twitter, dropped a cryptic message. If only they knew the real Daniel Martins. The secrets he hides are worse than anything Adesuwa ever did. If only they knew the real Daniel Martins. The secrets he hides are worse than anything Adesuwa ever did. At first, people dismissed it as fake. Another desperate attempt to shift blame. But then, screenshots started leaking. Real documents, bank statements, voice recordings. And suddenly, the whole city of Lagos was buzzing again. Daniel was hiding something. Something big. And Adesuwa was about to blow it wide open. That evening, Daniel was at his office, sipping whiskey, scrolling through the internet with a smug smile. He had destroyed Adesuwa. What more could she possibly do? He was the victim here. The betrayed husband. The man who exposed his unfaithful wife to the world. Lagos had cheered him on. Friends, business partners, even total strangers had supported him. But then his phone started ringing. First, Tunde. Then his sister, Sophia. Then his lawyer. He ignored the first few calls, but when Tunde sent a text, "Bro, check Twitter." Now, his stomach tightened. Daniel opened the app, and his whole world collapsed. There it was, trending at #1, #Daniel Martins exposed. Adesuwa had fought back. And this time, she had come prepared. The first post was a video. A recording of Adesuwa, sitting in a dimly lit room. Her voice was steady, calm, but there was something chilling about the way she spoke. I kept quiet for too long. I let the world believe I was the villain. But now, it's time for the truth. The real Daniel Martins, he is not the man you think he is. Then the screen cut to a series of bank transactions. Money being funneled into offshore accounts. Large sums, millions of naira, vanishing without explanation. A document appeared, marked confidential, showing how Daniel had embezzled funds from one of his biggest contracts. Daniel's hands started shaking. He clicked the next post. This one was a voice recording. His own voice. We'll move the money in small batches. Nobody will notice. Just make sure the auditors don't see the real books. Daniel's heart stopped. How? How did she get this? And then the real bomb dropped. A picture. Daniel in a luxury hotel suite. Shirtless. With a woman that was not Adesuwa. The timestamp? 8 months before their wedding anniversary. The caption? The faithful husband. The righteous man. Or just another liar. The internet went wild. Within minutes, the media frenzy flipped. The same blogs that had destroyed Adesuwa were now tearing into Daniel. The real fraud. Exposed. Business tycoon Daniel Martins caught in massive scandal. Adesuwa was no saint, but was Daniel any better? Companies started pulling out of deals. Investors were backing away. And then came the worst blow, the EFCC. Nigeria's Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Daniel's phone rang again. This time, it was his lawyer. Daniel, we have a problem. No, this wasn't just a problem. This was a disaster. Somewhere in a quiet part of Lagos, Adesuwa sat in a private lounge, sipping a glass of red wine. She had nothing left to lose. Daniel had made sure of that. Her reputation was gone, her career in shambles. But if she was going down, she was taking him with her. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She opened it and smiled. Well played. Let's talk. It was Richard. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she thought. Daniel had destroyed Adesuwa. Now, Adesuwa had destroyed Daniel. The war was no longer about love, betrayal, or revenge. This was about survival, and neither of them was ready to lose. I never thought I would see the day when both Daniel and Adesuwa would be brought to their knees. What started as a simple case of infidelity had spiraled into a full-blown disaster, leaving nothing but ruins behind. The once-admired couple, Daniel Martins, the successful businessman, and Adesuwa, the elegant socialite, had become the hottest topic in Lagos, and not for the reasons they wanted. Their lives, once filled with glamour, luxury, and high-class events, were now nothing more than gossip fodder for the entire city. Every news outlet, every social media page, and every blogger was having a field day dissecting their downfall. But here's the thing, no one really won. Daniel had started this war, determined to ruin Adesuwa after discovering her betrayal. But in his quest for vengeance, he had made a fatal mistake. He underestimated her. Adesuwa wasn't just some helpless woman caught in a scandal. She was calculating, resourceful, and most importantly, she had nothing to lose. And when someone has nothing to lose, they become the most dangerous kind of opponent. The final blow had been swift and merciless. While Daniel thought he had won by exposing Adesuwa and making her a laughingstock, she had one last card up her sleeve. She had been gathering dirt on him for years. The public didn't see it coming. One moment, they were enjoying the chaos of Adesuwa's scandal, and the next, the headlines changed. Daniel Martins exposed embezzlement, fraud, and infidelity. It turned out that Adesuwa had been quietly collecting evidence of Daniel's shady business deals, money laundering, and hidden affairs. When she finally released everything, it hit like an atomic bomb. Banks started reviewing his transactions. The tax authorities took notice. Investors pulled out. Business partners distanced themselves. Even his own employees started questioning their loyalty to him. His empire, built over years of hard work and strategic partnerships, began to crumble before his eyes. For the first time in his life, Daniel was powerless. Meanwhile, Adesuwa, despite the scandal, had something Daniel no longer had, an escape plan. And that's where Richard came in. Of all the people involved in this messy affair, Richard had suffered in silence. The man who had once been Daniel's trusted business partner was publicly humiliated when their affair was exposed. His reputation had taken a massive hit. Clients stopped working with him. His own wife left him. He had lost almost everything, except for Adesuwa. In the most shocking turn of events, Richard forgave her. Maybe it was love, or maybe it was just desperation. Whatever it was, he didn't care about the past anymore. Unlike Daniel, who was obsessed with revenge, Richard wanted to move on. And so, he made her an offer, a fresh start, away from Lagos, away from the scandal, away from the wreckage of their past mistakes. It was a deal Adesuwa couldn't refuse. With what little dignity she had left, she accepted his offer, packed her bags, and left everything behind. By the time Daniel realized what was happening, it was too late. There, at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, stood Adesuwa and Richard, side by side, holding hands, ready to board their flight to Dubai. It was surreal. Daniel had always thought she would be the one left broken and alone. But as he stood there, watching them disappear through the gates, he felt something he had never expected, emptiness. All this time, he had been fighting to destroy her, to make her suffer, to make her regret ever betraying him. And yet, she was the one walking away with something he no longer had, a future. Daniel was left with nothing but a ruined reputation, a failing business, and regrets that could never be undone. So, who really won in the end? The airport was buzzing with the usual Lagos chaos, loud announcements, rushing passengers, and the endless shuffle of suitcases. But Daniel Martins barely noticed any of it. He stood frozen, gripping his phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. Right in front of him, walking towards the departure gate, was Adesuwa, his wife, or rather, the woman who had shattered his life into a million pieces. And beside her was Richard. Daniel's chest felt tight. He had spent the last few weeks watching everything he had built crumble. His business, his reputation, his name. The once powerful Daniel Martins was now a cautionary tale in Lagos high society. The whispers followed him everywhere. Daniel, the man who thought he was in control but was played by his own wife. He had exposed Adesuwa, humiliated her, made sure the whole country knew what she had done. Yet somehow, in the end, she was the one walking away with her head held high. And Richard, the same man who had betrayed him, was now standing there like he had won. Daniel had lost everything. His phone buzzed in his hand. Another notification from a blog. His name was still trending, but not in the way he wanted. Former business tycoon Daniel Martins faces embezzlement probe. His throat went dry. The world now knew about the deals he had tried to keep hidden. His enemies had been waiting for the right moment to strike, and Adesuwa had given them the perfect weapon. His past sins were no longer secrets. He swallowed hard. He wanted to believe that Adesuwa had been the villain in all this. That she had used him, deceived him, broken him. But now, standing there, watching her leave without a single look back, he had to ask himself, had he been the real problem all along? The memories played in his mind like a cruel movie. The women. The lies. The nights he had spent in hotel rooms, thinking Adesuwa would never find out. She had stayed silent, but she had seen everything. She had been planning her revenge long before he ever suspected. And in the end, she had outplayed him. He took a step forward, his heart pounding. Maybe if he could just say something, stop her, make her see that they could still fix this. But what would he even say? Adesuwa turned slightly, as if she could feel his stare. For a brief second, their eyes met. There was no anger in hers. No satisfaction. Just peace. She had let go. Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came out. What was there to say? That he was sorry? That he should have been better? That he wished he could undo everything? A voice crackled over the speakers. Final boarding call for Flight 209 to Dubai. Richard placed a hand on Adesuwa's back, guiding her forward. She didn't look back again. And just like that, she was gone. Daniel let out a slow breath, his shoulders slumping. He had spent so much time trying to punish Adesuwa, to make her suffer, to prove to the world that she was the problem. But in the end, he was the one left standing alone. Maybe he had never been the victim after all. The thought sank deep into his chest, heavier than anything he had ever felt before. For the first time in his life, Daniel Martins had to face the truth. He had lost, not just to Adesuwa, but to himself. And there was no coming back from this.